on this Sunday night, war in the Middle East. More U.S. and Israeli strikes target the heart of Tehran as the regime hits back, bombing Israel and other Gulf countries.
It's really a fight for survival of the regime and for inflicting as much damage as the regime can.
The Canadians caught in the crossfire.
All of a sudden it was boom, and the explosion hit.
Plus, pain at the pumps, why the conflict in Iran is about to send oil prices soaring.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. One day after the U.S. and Israel unleashed a massive attack on Iran, killing the country's supreme leader, those strikes have only intensified. Plumes of smoke rising over Tehran tonight. Iran's leadership is vowing revenge, promising the most devastating offensive operation in its history. Iran striking targets across several countries. And late today, President Trump again called on the Iranian people to rise up against their regime. And he also addressed the American people.
These actions are right and they are necessary to ensure that Americans will never have to face a radical, bloodthirsty terrorist regime armed with nuclear weapons and lots of threats.
Air raid sirens blaring across Jerusalem and Tel Aviv tonight as missiles rain down. There are mounting casualties on both sides, including American troops and Iranian children. Redmond Shannon has our top story tonight.
The grief Iran wants the world to see. Supporters of its government mourn the killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the second supreme leader of the Islamic Republic. Their sadness mixed with anger too. This man says Israel must be removed from the face of the earth, just as Khamenei wanted. With the internet all but blocked, it's not easy to know what government opponents feel. But some videos of celebrations have leaked out, including the toppling of a monument to the first supreme leader, Ruhollah Khomeini.
There is a great degree of dissatisfaction among the Iranian populace with the system, but the system also has maintained a willingness, certainly, and a capacity to crack down very brutally with thousands of people killed.
No Iranians will be celebrating what happened at this girls' school. Authorities there say an airstrike killed more than 150 people, a number currently difficult to verify. US President Donald Trump says the joint operation with Israel is ahead of schedule, claiming they have sunk 9 Iranian warships and have killed 48 Iranian leaders, including the head of the armed forces and the chief of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
The entire military command is gone as well, and many of them want to surrender into saving their lives. They want immunity. They're calling by the thousands.
One leader who survived is President Masoud Pezeshkian, who said revenge is Iran's duty and right. He now forms part of a 3-person interim leadership council, alongside Chief Justice Mohseni Ejei and Ayatollah Alireza Arafi. It's expected a new supreme leader to replace Khamenei could be elected by clerics in the coming days. That will happen as the bombs continue to fall. This is footage of what Israel's military says is its targeting of an IRGC base. Missiles are still flying out of Iran too, aimed at Gulf states that house US military bases, and at Israel. An Iranian strike killed at least 9 people in a town near Jerusalem. Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu said these are painful days, but he promised to only intensify strikes on Iran. On the streets of Jerusalem, there is a range of views about the cost of trying to change regime in Tehran.
It's hard to continue to do this again after the last round.
I'm so happy. Ding dong, the witch is dead. I really feel that right now we're on the good path and that everything is going to be fine.
There is a cost for the US too, one Trump can't ignore. 3 US service members have been killed and 5 seriously injured in the operation so far. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
And we're learning new details tonight about how the Americans and Israelis managed to successfully target Iran's Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and other high-ranking regime members. According to the New York Times, the CIA had been tracking the Supreme Leader's movements for months, and they learned he planned to meet with his top officials on Saturday morning at this leadership compound. As a result, Israel launched its first strikes not overnight in the darkness, but at around 9:40 a.m., killing the Supreme Leader and numerous other top officials. The regime says it has now appointed an interim committee to run the country until a successor is chosen. And U.S. President Trump says Iran's new leaders have already reached out and want to talk. Candace Cole reports from Washington on what comes next.
In the aftermath of the U.S. and Israeli airstrikes on Iran that led to the death of their supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, it's unclear what's in store for Iran's future. So far, over 40 Iranian officials have been reported killed in those strikes, including some of Khamenei's top brass, Iran's defense minister, and the head of the Islamic Military Guard, severely weakening the regime.
Its goal is basically regime survival at this point.
With regime change the top priority for both the U.S. and Israeli governments, more retaliatory attacks are expected as it clings to power.
They're going to try to accelerate the attacks on Israel to try to create some kind of increase the number of casualties.
But some experts believe the days of the regime ended with Saturday's attacks, making way for a democratic government. But before that can happen, some expect a possible second revolution that could bring about more bloodshed following the brutal crackdowns on protesters last month.
It's much more likely, in my view, that in the next few days, you will begin to see a popular uprising. It is possible that once that occurs, you might see segments of the regime try to impose a severe crackdown.
One possibility could see the return of Iran's royal family, with the son of Iran's exiled Shah, Reza Pahlavi, vying to lead the transition of power in the wake of Khamenei's death. But that hinges on what Trump may decide to do next.
It's certainly possible that the Venezuela model will be implemented in Iran, but I think given that there's another stakeholder in this war, and that's Israel, I think it's less likely that some faction of the regime will be left standing, because the regime in all its forms is an existential threat to Israel.
In the United States, Trump's attack on Iran without any congressional authorization has become the latest test of his presidency, with mixed reactions coming from Washington.
The president has acted boldly, he's acted decisively, and Iran no longer being led by a theocratic, murderous dictator, that makes America much, much safer.
What are we getting out of this? We're not getting regime change to a democracy. We're not going to eliminate their nuclear program. We are going to have regional war breaking out. It's going to be the children of middle class and poor families all across this country who are going to die for a war of choice, a war of vanity, an illegal war.
Military experts say Americans should expect the U.S. to carry out several more days of strikes on Iran, while Washington lawmakers push to bring a war powers vote to the floor this week. Jeff?
Candace Cole in Washington. Thanks. The war in the Middle East is already having a major impact on oil shipments through that region. Several tankers have been damaged and at least one sailor has been killed. At least 3 ships were struck near the Strait of Hormuz, a key shipping route off the coast of Iran, which moves about 20% of the world's oil and gas supplies. It's unclear who attacked, but the ship was previously sanctioned by the U.S. for allegedly being part of Iran's shadow fleet. Iran's Revolutionary Guard also issued new radio warnings to ships in the region that the strait is closed.
This is Sepah Navy, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. From now on, all navigating through the Strait of Hormuz is forbidden.
The disruptions are expected to fuel oil prices, which were already rising over fears of the conflict. The price of Brent crude jumped 10% to about $80 today. If this conflict drags on, analysts warn it could go over $100 per barrel. These protesters opposed to the strikes on Iran tried to storm U.S. diplomatic offices across Pakistan today, leaving at least 22 people dead and more than 120 others injured. Government officials in Karachi say the protesters breached the outer wall of the U.S. consulate and were then fired upon by U.S. security officials. The conflict is also causing major travel disruptions around the world today as flights remain suspended at key transit airports across the Middle East. Airports in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Doha have been shut down or restricted as airspace in the region remains closed. Iranian strikes caused damage to the Dubai International Airport as well as a hotel. Some Canadians are now caught in that region. As Heidi Petracek reports, with flights canceled, they're now stranded with the strikes raining down.
Across the country, Iranians have been gathering from Toronto to Halifax, many celebrating the death of Iran's supreme leader.
I can assure you he was the biggest supporter of the terrorism around the world, and he's gone.
We are very hopeful. The first step is just getting rid of this regime.
But there is fallout from the American strikes, Iranian rockets targeting Israel with deadly consequences, and striking a high-end hotel in Dubai. The smoke captured in this video from a Canadian living nearby.
All of a sudden it was boom, and the explosion hit the missile hit the Fairmont on the Palm.
The explosion Saturday, just a 5-minute walk from Grayson Foster's apartment. Retaliatory strikes continued to target Gulf states Sunday. The sound of rockets and drones being intercepted loud overhead.
But the sound of it and the visuals of it is, of course, very daunting and surreal. I've never experienced anything like this in my life.
All flights in and out of Dubai's now damaged international airport have been suspended, part of the travel chaos throughout the region. The Canadian government advising against any travel to the UAE, along with a host of other nations throughout the Middle East, including Qatar, where there's also been retaliatory attacks. A group of Canadian students from Queen's University is stuck in Doha after their flight from Sri Lanka was grounded there. They're waiting in a hotel for any update. We do not know when we will get back, writes fourth-year biology student Claire Hafner to Global News. As of right now, we can do nothing but wait and be thankful we are all together and support each other. The repercussions of the American strikes have caused some to raise their voices against how it was done.
And it's very disappointing to see Canada stand up and support that.
We're against war because we know that these civilian casualties will happen. Foreign intervention often leads to various issues such as destruction of the Iranian sovereignty.
In Halifax, these Iranians argue this is a step towards the country's freedom.
So this is a help that we asked for it, and we know what we wanted.
Iran's future now in different hands. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Coming up, talking trade. What to expect from the Prime Minister's high-stakes meeting with his Indian counterpart. In Texas, 2 people were killed and 14 others hurt when a gunman opened fire in front of a bar in Austin early this morning. The suspect was then shot and killed by police. Multiple media reports say the gunman was wearing a shirt that said "Property of Allah" with an Iranian flag. Police have not confirmed those reports. The gunman has been identified as a naturalized American citizen born in Senegal. The FBI says it is now investigating that shooting as a potential act of terrorism. The leaders of the UK, France, and Germany released a joint statement today saying they want to work with the U.S. to stop Iran's retaliatory attacks on their allies in the region. Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is in India preparing to meet with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, but his trip is also being overshadowed by the fighting in the Middle East. Mackenzie Gray is in Delhi for us tonight. So, Mac, what are Canadian officials saying about the events in the Middle East?
The Liberals have been silent today about the death of the Iranian Supreme Leader Jeff. The day after the Prime Minister was very supportive of the U.S. and Israeli military actions that killed him. Mark Carney had no public events today, and no senior officials or the Foreign Affairs Minister spoke with the traveling media. Anita Anand dined tonight with the Indian Foreign Minister, and she posted online earlier this morning that Canada condemns the Iranian attacks on the UAE and Qatar and reaffirmed their ability to defend themselves. Now, while Cabinet might be silent on the Supreme Leader's death, one BC Liberal is speaking out.
Canada cannot endorse the unilateral and illegal use of military force, the killing of civilians, or the kidnap and assassination of foreign heads of government, while also insisting that our sovereignty, our rights, and our independence must be respected.
That Instagram post from Will Greaves, Jeff, also garnered 5 likes from Liberal members, including Health Minister Marjorie Michel.
All right, some division in the Liberal ranks there. Mark Carney now shifting his focus to his high-stakes meeting with the Indian Prime Minister, Mac. So what did the Prime Minister have to say on that front today?
The only time we saw the Prime Minister on Sunday, Jeff, was when he got on and off the plane from Mumbai to New Delhi. And when he arrived here in the capital, he was greeted by some traditional dancers ahead of the biggest day of this entire trip, where Carney will meet with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He's expected to sign multiple trade agreements, including allowing uranium to be exported to India, amid a commitment from both sides to try and get a free trade deal done within a year. Another sign that the Carney government is moving on from the Justin Trudeau era, when they made accusations that the Indian government was behind murders, extortions, and violence in Canada, Jeff. Something a senior Canadian government official has told reporters is no longer happening.
Mackenzie Gray in Delhi, India tonight. Thanks, Mac. Still ahead, the endgame in Iran. Coming up, our conversation with the Israeli ambassador to Canada. President Trump provided several phone interviews today, telling reporters that the U.S.-Israeli campaign is moving along well and ahead of schedule. But what exactly is the end game in Iran? Joining me to discuss is the Israeli ambassador to Canada, Ido Moed. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. So can you help us clarify on that point? We'd heard discussion about the nuclear program, about regime change. What exactly is the goal of this operation in your view?
The goal of this operation, of Operation Roaring Lion, led by the United States, is very clear. It is about removing existential threats emanating from Iran. After last June, when Iran's nuclear and missile programs were hit, we thought in Israel that the message was clear and that the Iranian regime understood that going the way of going to destroy the state of Israel is off their minds. But we came to realize that that's not the case. It's a danger not only for Israel, it's a danger for the Middle East and for the rest of the world.
Okay, and so are we talking about regime change here? Or, I mean, what exactly does that look like?
I think that we can talk about lines that support the Iranians with means, perhaps, to create a regime change. It's for the Iranian people, and this is also the message that was very clearly said by Prime Minister Netanyahu the other day, that we want to see a peaceful Iran living side by side with the rest of the region. So it's up to the Iranian people. And hopefully through this operation, they will have improved ways to create that regime change. But it is up to them.
Right. As you noted, we'd heard that from President Trump, from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, calling on the Iranian people to essentially rise up to take advantage of this moment. But given the brutal crackdowns that we saw during those protests in December, January, thousands killed, how realistic is that in your view?
It is very hard to say. We know that the Iranian regime created a machinery, a system to oppress its people. We have to do whatever we can to at least create the conditions for the population to rise up. But beyond that, we want to make sure that Iran does not pose that existential threat, not to Israel and not to the rest of the region.
Iran has blamed Israel and the U.S. for a missile strike on a school that it says killed more than 150 children. Do you have any response to that or any insight into what happened there?
I can't say anything about this, but I can tell you the following. Iran has struck a synagogue today, and under that synagogue was a shelter where tens of people were hiding. Iran is shooting indiscriminately into concentration of population in Israel and around the region. We know that they don't care who they hit and what they hit as long as they create damage and as long as there are casualties. That's in their mind, that kind of terror, that is the way that they handle themselves.
Ido Moed, Israel's ambassador to Canada, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Up next, Canadian Iranians rallying across the country share their hopes and fears for Iran's future.
for the most compelling stories told by the country's best journalists.
How precarious is the relationship with the United States?
Watch Canada's #1 national newscast, the award-winning Global National, with Donna Friesen.
Welcome back. Countries around the world are anxiously watching to see what happens next in Iran, including here in Canada, which is home to more than 200,000 Iranian Canadians, one of the largest diasporas in the world. And we leave you tonight with their voices, Iranian Canadians, on their hopes and fears for the future. Thanks for watching.
When it got the news, it was 1 a.m. and I couldn't understand what's going on. You know, it was so surprised. You know, I cannot explain how happy I am, and Iranian people are happy so far.
That was a guy that was responsible for tens of thousands of deaths, killings of innocent Iranian protesters over the years, and yeah, people are just happy that perhaps there can be a new era in the history of Iran, and transition to democracy.
We are worried that the next phase, which is the establishment of a free democratic republic, we just want it to go the way it has been planned out last 45 years and hope there is no outside interference.
This was historic. I can tell you a lot about it, but however I say it, I cannot hide my joy.
There is hope, there is joy, there is a good future ahead of them, and hopefully it will change, and everyone in the world, they will be welcome to come and join us and we celebrate together.